Story 1. I made many people in my high school take pictures with a plastic fork. I told them it was for a school project. It wasn't, I just thought it would be funny. I still have that laptop with an entire folder filled with random kids holding forks. Story 2. My mom gave me a perm and it was awful. It looked like an afro on a little white girl's head. So I told her to cut all the perm off. I ended up with a very boyish hairstyle. The kids at school called me Fred for the whole year. Story 3. I liked Vanilla Ice and MC Hammer. I had my mom cut my hair like Vanilla Ice's and had her make me some hammer pants. I was a farmer's son from a rural town of 500 people. Story 4. Loved the band Orgy so much in 7th grade but didn't know what the word meant. I wrote the band name on everything, bedroom furniture, school notebooks, everywhere. Story 5. Got really into vampires, to the point where I used to pretend I was one. In school, I thought I was so cool and edgy when I asked people what blood type they were. I wish I could punch younger me. Story 6. Somehow, I convinced my internet boyfriend when I was 13 to meet me at summer camp. I can't believe his parents allowed this. The camp was like 3 states away from him, and somehow his parents let him attend a random camp on a lake. He actually had to fly in an airplane. Then, when we were at summer camp together, we said about 4 words to each other. I cringe and also laugh hysterically when I remember this amazing story of a mid-1990s America online chat room relationship that luckily did not end in my death. Story 7. At 13, I had a 16-year-old boyfriend. He was interested in moving much faster than I was, so I knew I needed to break it off, but I was a shy, awkward emo kid. So, I changed my Microsoft Network profile picture to a screenshot from My Chemical Romance's I Don't Love You music video with the letters I Don't Love You over the top of it and waited for him to ask about it. He did. It worked. But boy, I am not proud of that one. Story 8. In 7th grade, mid-1990s, my best friend called my crush and told him I had been in a terrible car accident and was in the hospital while I listened on the other line to see how he would react. Story 9. I spiked my long hair with half a bottle of hair gel and half a bottle of hairspray every morning. Maybe 30 individual spikes. The process took over an hour. Story 10. Go around our small town with friends and a digital camera, pose for pictures, heavily edit them on PicMonkey, and upload them to an album on Facebook with some ridiculous title like lyrics to a song or roar. Story 11. A boy I liked did not want to go out with me because he did not get permission from God. So I sat in my bedroom, listening to a song called Not Pretty Enough, while I watched myself cry in the mirror. Story 12. When I was like 11, I overheard my crush saying he liked me. I wrote a silly letter to him after that, saying we should meet at a local park, kiss, and do other stuff. I also suggested I bring marshmallows we could roast. So I walked with my friend to his house and put it in his mailbox. Well, the next morning I was called into the principal's office, my mom sitting there crying, and him and his mom in the room. Apparently, he never got the letter. His mother read it first. I wanted to die. It was so embarrassing. Everyone in that room had read the letter at this point. Even the police were there. I ended up being moved to a different classroom because it was just too awkward, only to be reunited in the same accelerated class at our next school. The shame was real. Cringe. Story 13. One of the hottest girls in school invited me over to teach her piano, and she was home alone. As I was teaching her, she started getting flirty and telling me how she liked me, and I said, "Guess you don't want me to actually teach you piano. Maybe I should go." It wasn't until later that I realized what I had done, and I still think about it 15 years later, how big of an innocent doofus I was. Story 14. I used to be so proud of being an otaku. I used a Japanese name on my Facebook, wrote my Facebook statuses in Japanese using Google Translate, made fun of people who don't watch anime, and I had anime characters as my profile pictures. I'm not even Japanese. Story 15. So many things. One that has to take the cake is telling a girl I liked that I spoke French. The problem was she actually did. So, when it came time to speak French, I just let out a series of what could charitably be called sounds that a 1940s cartoon Cajun man might make. I was cringing so badly in the moment, and I'm cringing now. Story 16. I was participating in a gift exchange event where everyone swaps presents at a youth group church gathering when I was an extremely hormonal, mentally ill, autistic 13-year-old boy. I started crying when someone took just $5 from me, and no matter how I felt about it, I could not stop crying. This went on for about 2 hours, and since we all traveled together, I couldn't simply leave. Story 17. I was finally becoming friends with the hottest girl in my class. She sat behind me in math class. My friend in front of me asked me for help with a question, and I leaned forward. Unfortunately, I couldn't do math in my head and hold my flatulence, so I accidentally farted right in her face. I never spoke to her again. The second one was when my teacher asked me in front of the class what I did all night because I yawned and was always tired. Too embarrassed to say I was binging One Tree Hill because it was more of a girls' show, I opted for the vague watching videos. Story 18. I was a teenager during the height of Jackass, as well as other shows like The Dude Sons and of course Viva La Bam. So, of course, my friends and I decided we could be the New Zealand version of Jackass and start filming the dumbest stunt videos. I'm lucky that, first, I grew up rural, so we never did any cringe prank videos, and second, YouTube wasn't a thing yet, so all the films are lost to time. Story 19. I had a crush on a boy on my street who was 4 years older than me. 12 versus 16. I thought it was a cute idea to tell him I had a crush by writing the lyrics to a Britney Spears song and putting it on his car. I still cringe when I think about it 16 years later. Story 20. Putting on a Chicano accent wannabe chola. I am not even Mexican. Some of my friends could not recognize me over the phone because of the voice. Yikes. Story 21. My teacher asked me to change my shoes. I went to a Catholic school and we were supposed to wear black dress shoes. Apparently, mine weren't dressy enough. I wrote her a letter saying that I am a Buddhist and that she was interfering with my education and my path to enlightenment. That was an awkward session with the principal. Story 22. I had a wine-colored velvet cowboy hat I loved and wore constantly. At a different time, I wore a tiara as a headband for a long while. I also went barefoot for about a year. My school was surprisingly laid back about that kind of thing, though they had gotten stricter by the time I graduated, including outdoors walking around downtown where my school was. I was a weird kid. Story 23. I had a guy I was crushing on and got his number from someone else, then texted him pretending he texted me first. It worked, and we dated for several years. Sorry, Charlie, that was silly. Story 24. I wore a fake wolf tail on my belt loop with a chain in public. On my first date with my now husband, I sat on a park bench, and the chain got stuck in the bench seat's gaps. Story 25. Back in 10th grade, we had to do this challenge where we were to write an entire novel in a month. National Novel Writing Month, for those that know. We set goals for ourselves, and being me, I was one of only 2 people in my class who set my goal above the minimum amount, setting it to be 40,000 words. I wrote a Minecraft fanfiction, 40,000 words of cringeworthy nonsense. Story 26. Dad walked in on me using the family back massager on myself. I had locked my door, but it didn't click all the way shut. We have never talked about it to this day, and when I remember it, my mind closes in on itself in embarrassment. Story 27. I used to tell girls I loved them in high school. I did it twice and went into their classrooms and shouted that I loved them. One time I had class with a girl I liked, and in the middle of the lecture I shouted I love name out loud. Yeah, I was way overconfident. Story 28. I cared about what other people thought of me based on my choices at lunch. I could have enjoyed Crispitos to the fullest, but instead, I was so concerned about having other people see me eat that I just ate bland salad, if I ate anything at all. Story 29. As a skinny white teenager, I went through a phase where I tried to emulate a black American gangster from the neighborhood. I wore extra large shirts and baggy pants, dressed the part, mimicked their rap style, and even adopted their mannerisms. Looking back, it's no surprise that I became a target for teasing and bullying. Trying so hard to be someone I wasn't made me stand out in all the wrong ways. Story 30. Okay, buckle up. One time, my friend left his email logged in on my computer. I sent him an email from himself, from the future. I detailed things I knew he would be doing that day and told him not to go to that gas station. That's where it all began. Then I left him a riddle. I don't remember quite what the riddle said, but it was something like, up around the tree, the arrow will see, yada, yada, yada. Years went by. We went to college. When I was about 18, I told his brother what I had done. So that day, we hacked his email again and sent him another one from himself. One of those timed emails that would show up while we were all together. We then wrote a letter in pen detailing things that would happen in the future, soaked it in coffee to make it look old, and buried it in his backyard in an old cassette tape. We spray painted a tree with an arrow that pointed to the ground where we buried it. He got the email, freaked out, and we all laughed. Later, while we hung out in his hot tub that night, I challenged him to a race around that tree. I slipped at the tree, and when he came back, we saw the arrow. We dug up the cassette, and my friend was absolutely freaked out. He carried that note with him for years in his wallet, trying to prevent an awful future. I don't think it really messed with him, but one time when I was a senior in college, we got drunk and were playing Truth or Dare. He dared me to tell him a secret, so I came clean. He still had the note in his wallet. Story 31. In 2014, I used to watch a lot of anime, so I wore cat ears to school and tied my hair, so I had an ahogue. Then my friend told me that I looked like a furry. I didn't know what that was, and he said it's someone who likes animals. So then I proceeded to tell everyone I was a furry as well. Yes, I'm not a furry, I promise. Story 32. I would put my earphones in while having 3 to 4 hour long concerts in my room, singing and dancing to the songs like I was in a real-life musical. I would choose songs that somewhat had something to do with my life or love life at the time and pretend that my boyfriends or crushes were in front of me while I danced and sang to them. The best part is that my bedroom door was faced behind me, so I would get caught doing this by my parents all the time. I would turn around mid-performance and see them behind me laughing their heads off. Story 33. I once asked Michael Bublé after a concert which one of us would get in trouble if I were to harm him because I was underage but would also be the aggressor. He was so kind about it and handled it really well, and I thought I was so hilarious and edgy. Looking back, I wish someone had stopped me before I could talk to him. Like, no, bel teenager. Go find your friend's mom's car and let her drive you home, you little idiot. Story 34. I have never told anyone this. In middle school, I wanted to be a vampire so badly. I looked up how to become a vampire on YouTube. Apparently, all you had to do was play the video, listen to the music with a candle lit in a place alone. Of course, that didn't work. I tried it with a witch, then with a werewolf. You would have thought I'd have figured out it didn't work by now? Oh no, absolutely not. I also tried being a mermaid. Story 35. Must have been 7th grade. The 2 popular girls came into school one day, but they had lost their voices over the weekend. They hung out together, so they both got sick with the same thing. I pretended to lose my voice too, so people would think they secretly hung out with me, and when people called me out on it, I doubled down. I hate that memory. Story 36. After the boy who took my virginity broke up with me, I used to drive to his house, sit in front of it, and cry. Absolute cringe. I want to smack 15-year-old me. Story 37. When I was in the 6th grade, my mom had a huge crush on this Canadian actor named Roy Dupuis. She was in love with him, and she made a joke that we were going to move to Canada so she could find him and marry him with one of her girlfriends. Well, I took that seriously. I told everyone I was moving to Canada. Everybody wanted to know me before I moved to Canada. The teachers were getting my paperwork together so that I could transfer schools easily. Kids kept giving me gift baskets. One day, my mom comes into the school, and all the teachers are like, "We're really sorry to see her go." And my mom is like, "Go? She's going to a doctor's appointment. Where do you think she's going? And why are you handing me all of her school papers?" And they were like, "We're moving to Canada. We figured it was today since you were picking her up." And my mom couldn't do anything except burst out laughing, thinking it was the funniest thing she ever heard. Meanwhile, the rest of the kids were kind of mean when they found out I wasn't actually going to Canada. Story 38. I had an unhealthy obsession with Jim Morrison, Charles Bukowski, and John Lennon. I was a complicated person to understand back then. Thankfully, I now idolize good humans. Story 39. Way late to the party, but an old memory just popped up. While watching TV in the morning, there was some financial news. I learned about stocks. I then, for a period of a couple of weeks, carried around an old leather briefcase and pretended I was trading stocks. I was in 5th or 6th grade, laughing out loud. I'm cringing so hard just typing this. Story 40. I used to do breakdance and electric boogie in front of a shoe store in a small town. I obviously wore the white gloves, neon clothes, and robot shades. Nobody but an old man walking his dog saw it. Story 41. I was a one-upper. You scored 2 goals, I claimed I scored 4. You got a 94 on your math test? Well, I got a 96. You got new headphones. I have 2 pairs at home I don't even use. When I was 16 or so, I was at my cousin's house sitting in a hot tub. It was 2 male cousins and 2 girls, their friends, not mine, all around our age. He asked me why I always had to one-up people after I said something about myself better than whatever he had said, thinking it would impress the girls. It suddenly hit me like a ton of bricks that was a bad thing. It's been a few decades since that moment, but it still sticks with me anytime someone tells me something awesome about themselves. I now try to cheer them on and tell them how cool it is rather than compete with them. Thank you, cousin, for straightening me out.